This is one of the most famous buildings in Chinatown. And I know the girl that lives in this building. And I've been dying for access to this roof, but she's been real flaky about it. But I'm gonna get it. This is too classic. So here we are walking these streets for a new episode of the making of Toy Lords of Chinatown. I regret that I don't have, ew, this dog shit. I regret that I don't have like a more compelling episode, but I've been struggling really hard to find a location to shoot the legendary Necromancer scene. Something I conceived of over 10 years ago. We shot all the exteriors to the scene, but I need a really impactful set to do the interior, and it's been eluding me. I posted something on Instagram, so I'm gonna go follow up now at a location here and see if it's suitable to my needs. So you're gonna follow me on my adventures as I mundanely visit strange locations that will serve as the decrepit lair of the master of the undead. So stay tuned.
It's a manufacturing building, and it's been in my family for like over 40 years. And we finally got rid of the manufacturer in there, and we just renovated it. I have a tenant downstairs in the basement now. And essentially what's going to happen is that I'm going to rent out the top floor also.
So some fancy white people shit?
No, Asian.
Okay, good. Wow.
So you may or may not be able to shoot down here in terms of your toys, because he's renovating. But if you ask them, maybe they'll let you shoot down here. But this is what the basement looks like. It's going to be a dance studio.
Look at this old boiler.
That's an old school. That's an old school oil tanker.
I saw. It's pretty good. And there's something upstairs too?
That's available, yeah.
Okay. These stairs are good.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, this not gonna really light it too much, so it's sort of this is taking place in,
Oh, yeah, how many, yeah, I forgot.
it'd probably be about 5 people,
And how long would you be?
maybe 3 hours.
Perfect.
And
I just have to be here for liability purposes.
can I do it at night? Because this.
You're gonna bring your own light force?
It's gonna be. I'm gonna use. I mean, this would work. This would work. Oh, I'm sitting on the toilet while I record this episode just because I'm trying to be efficient and save time. And I'm also getting high, but I need to create some content for this fucking Toy Lords episode. And so here you go. Thank God I found a fucking place right near my studio to film that scene. I was looking at some far-flung shit in Queens and Brooklyn, but fuck it, I could just move all my crap right from the studio into that location. It's just so fucking interesting to think that there was still fucking garment factories. I didn't film all of it because the guy was a little reticent, but he was telling me about how his family has owned property in Chinatown for decades and how they were all like garment factories and actual real sweatshops, which is, I think, kind of fitting to be filming in one of those locations. But apparently they still exist, and they're still opening up garment producing factories in downtown Manhattan in 2018. It's fascinating. It's fascinating the things you fucking find out. But it's good to know with this guy now I have this resource for more locations. I mean, the tell is that there's like tons of fucking vacant spots all throughout the Lower East Side. People think that this neighborhood has like been blown out, but it's like totally not. So it's good to get in on the inside and keep you updated on that. But this episode, this next scene is focusing on the character of the Necromancer. I've been wanting to put the Necromancer into the stories since I started doing original villains in 2006 or 7. You can actually see clips of the Necromancer in those very first teaser trailers that I ever put up. And by the way, we're going to be relisting all the old original villain stuff. Some of it is not great, but it's interesting just to see the progression. Arguably, Toy Lords of Chinatown isn't that great either, but someday we're going to have a real TV show and you'll see the progress. But the Necromancer has been in the psychedelic lore forever. I created this character even before the Suck Lord. He was invented in 2003 when I was invited to join the rap group Lords of the Rhymes. This is my first meeting with Burt Banger, aka Baron Dark Owl, who was going by the name Quickbeam in that group, and it was basically the concept is these two guys dressed like hobbits would rap about Lord of the Rings over like classic rock breaks and all kinds of pop culture samples referencing Lord of the Rings, and it was fucking brilliant stuff. You should check them out on YouTube. They're at. And I had just come off putting out my sophomore album, Sauron Speaks, which was in anticipation of the Peter Jackson movies coming out in the year 2000, which I hated, and we're going to talk about that in another time. But I love the character of Sauron, and I made a record based on trying to recapture that Star Wars breakbeat magic, but with the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings movie, and it was not successful, and it was artistically bad, and it was a commercial flop. It's got a few moments on it, but it's not great. But I was hot to do Lord of the Rings hip-hop shit, and these guys just showed up. The other Hobbit was the manager worked at the record label that Cisse was on back in the day, but I digress. So I joined it as the villains, and I performed as Gollum, the beatboxing Gollum, the Black Riders with the lowrider bicycle, and Sauron. And I built, the show would start where the fucking smoke machine would come on, and then I had this Sauron would rise out of the smoke with the fucking strobe light, and then the beat would start, and then the hobbits would come out and they'd do their show, and then I'd go back and I'd change into the Gollum costume. And I built this 8-foot tall costume based on my favorite image of Sauron, which is actually fictitious and not book accurate at all, but it's the cover of the bootleg version of Return of the King, which came out on Ace Books. Now here's a funny story. This is getting detailed, I know. Lord of the Rings was first published in England in the mid-50s somewhere, mid to late 50s, I forgot the year exactly, I know, kill me. And they didn't have the license to do it in America, so the fly-by-night, pulp book company, Ace Books, took advantage of the fact that the publishing rights were open in America and put out these hastily printed and conceived paperbacks of the actual Lord of the Rings. Tolkien himself goes on to decry these things. He doesn't name them by name, but in the foreword of the real American Ballantine, was it Ballantine printing of Lord of the Rings, he goes on to say that don't buy the counterfeits, buy the real article. And normally I agree with that, but also these things being bootleg books, they had some fascinating elements. Mostly, notably and almost only, was the cover art. The paintings for the covers were great, and they're not really accurate, but they're awesome. And Sauron is depicted as this looming hooded character with just a single eye. And I just love that fucking image. He doesn't appear that way in the book. He doesn't appear in the book at all. He doesn't look like anything. He has no body. He is literally just a fucking floating eyeball. But I thought it looked cool. So I adapted that, and I created that costume for Lords of the Rhymes. And I was in their videos, and we did their stage show. And then that group dissolved, and I had that Sauron character, and I loved it. And when I started making toys and figures and started conceptualizing my supervillain universe and created the Sucklord character, I needed an enemy to the Sucklord, and I reached back and pulled the Sauron thing out, and I just renamed him the Necromancer. He makes a off-screen appearance in The Hobbit also, where Gandalf makes an excuse of why he can't hang out is because he has to go confront the Necromancer. And that later turned out to be Sauron, and I love that word. And also there's that song, The Necromancer by Rush, which I also really liked, which is a Tolkien-influenced song. So I just made that the character, and then I started making little figures of like Sucklord versus Necromancer, and it was like, the science versus sorcery type thing. And just I liked the idea of like, it wasn't a good guy and a bad guy, it was a bad guy fighting another bad guy, and that's how the Necromancer sort of found its way into the lore. And then I made a bootleg figure of him. It was like the second figure I made after the Sucklord, and then ever since then he's been part of the legacy, part of the lore, part of the mythology, and he's never made an appearance until now. So this is going to be great. And you're going to see the making of that in the next episode. The funny thing about this is, like, I conceived of this scene at least over 10 years ago, And when we first started making these movies, I was trying to film it all at once. I had like 10 different movies going, and I would just film them as opportunity allowed. And I wanted to do the exterior of the Necromancer's lair, and we used this decrepit, abandoned mental institution, which is on Roosevelt Island. Now, for those of you who are not from New York City, Roosevelt Island is a small little residential strip of land that lives between Manhattan and Queens, somewhere around the 50s. They have that tramway that connects it, and it's a little sliver of land, and it has a bunch of apartment complexes. I think it was once a Coast Guard base, and later on it was a place where they had leper colonies. They actually had a few other islands in the East River that were home to leper colonies and insane asylums and places where they just used to institutionalize, the people that couldn't live in normal society. And there was this fantastic one that was built in the 1800s, and it was just this weird Gothic-looking tower thing. And I guess they stopped putting people in there decades and decades ago, and it fell to ruin. And it was just beautiful. So, it was one of those things that you figured it was going to either fall down or be slated for demolition. So I always thought that was going to be the Necromancer's castle, and even though I wasn't ready to film this episode, I thought like that set was going to be gone forever. So I hastened to shoot out there, and I took Baron Dark Owl is the other character in the scene, and my girlfriend at the time, who was Spooky Booty, on camera, and we went and we filmed the exteriors of these two characters approaching this sinister looking place and actually going inside. I mean, there's nothing inside, it's a hollowed shell, but you can make it look like Vektar's walking in. And then the scene we're shooting next is what happens inside. And we wound up getting arrested because it's a very dangerous, it's a crumbling building. You're not allowed to go in there. We hopped the fence, we went in there, and a fucking cop came and threw all three of us in the back of a police car and drove us down and processed us. I got my girlfriend arrested. She was mortified. And we had to go to court. And so a couple months later we go to court, and talk about fucking white privilege, man. They just put us in front of the judge, and he's like, what'd you do? And it's like, trespassing? What were you doing? Oh, I'm making a movie, I'm an artist. And he's like, you guys don't look like criminals, get out of here. It's like, okay, I don't look like criminals. I don't know what that means, because we had done a crime. But we got off the hook, but nevertheless we got arrested, and now finally that footage is has just been sitting in the can forever. And now it's finally time to fucking put it all together, and I'm very excited. So thanks for your support in this, and there'll be some fun surprises up ahead. So as you can see, the Necromancer is still playing a role. That's the Ace Books image. That's been the chief representative of the Necromancer in print. You can see here on the floor is the fucking robe. The thing is gigantic because you can wear a pair of 2-foot tall carpenter stilts underneath that. It's got the Jimmy Page flames, and here are the extender arms. It's the hands of the Necromancer. You can see the missing finger where the ring was taken. If you ever seen a photo of me throwing this sign up, I've been doing that forever, and that's what that means. So figure it out. Here's the Necromancer eye. You need to change the battery, and I'm finally going to get to release this gem, which I made in 2008. The flaming eye of the Necromancer wall sconce. It's pretty fantastic. It's amazing. Look right across the street, and you can see where the location we're going to be shooting in is. So to me, that's just like an awesome little successful detail that it didn't require fucking Facebook or fucking networking on Instagram. It was just good old-fashioned neighborhood shit that found me this fucking location, and it couldn't have worked out fucking better. So even in this day and age, in 2018, you can still just do fucking artistic shit in downtown Manhattan just by fucking asking around. So that's this episode of the making of Twirlers of Chinatown, and I'll get at you next with an exciting on-set, behind-the-scenes exclusive, only on motherfucking Patreon. Thank you.